Do you have authority and power over snakes and scorpions? Let's take a look at what the Otiot has to say to us about these words. Shalom, my friends. Joel asked me to do an Otiot study on scorpions and serpents to help clarify what's being said in the book of Lucas, that's the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19, where Yeshua says, "See, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and none at all shall hurt you." A lot of people stop there. Let's read on. Verse 20. Yeshua continues saying, "But do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names have been written in the Shamayim." Yeah. First of all, as many of you are probably aware, there are a lot of people out there who, they get into rituals. They get snakes and let the snakes bite them, and, they go crazy with this. I never saw them, putting scorpions on themselves, but I know they certainly get into it with snakes. And that's because they read the word in English only, and they don't understand what was actually written down. And this is the wonderful revelation we're given through these Otiot studies. But before we look at the Otiot, understand, Yeshua says, "I give you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions." He's not talking about snakes and scorpions literally as reptiles and insects. I don't know, what is a scorpion? Because he continues saying, "And over all the power of the enemy." Over all the power of Hashatan, these serpents and scorpions. He's talking about demons and the Satan's minions that want to attack you. And he goes on to make a very important point. He says, "Don't rejoice in this, that I've given you authority over Satan and his minions, but rather rejoice because your names have been written in the Shamayim, because you are one of the called out ones, one of the Kodeshim." Rejoice over that, not over your own. You start rejoicing over the fact that you have power over demons and Hashatan's minions. Now you're getting puffed up in the flesh and prideful. That's not a good thing. All right, first let's take a look at the Otiot for the word that we often see as serpent, and that is nachash, nun chet shin, nachash, nun chet shin, nachash, often interpreted into English as serpent. Nun is a picture of the seed, and it has to do with unstoppable motion, offspring, heirs. Chet is a picture of a fence. It divides things. Yeshua said, "I didn't come here to bring peace, but to bring division." Luke 12:51. It protects and surrounds. It has to do with the net chatef, the rapture, the resurrection, and chai, and it has to do with the operation of the spiritual gifts, the gifts of the Ruach. And then we have Shin, two front teeth. Again, something that cuts and divides and separates into two separate camps. Here we're talking about Nachash. Satan, Shatan, is the Nachash, the bad seed, Nun, unstoppable except by Elohim. And chet, it's a fence that surrounds and protects when we are talking about Elohim. But in this case, it's a fence that divides and tries to pull those who are in the fence of protection, Yahweh's Geder HaKodesh, tries to pull them out and divide them away from Elohim. And then Shin, two front teeth, cuts and divides again with the attempt to divide people away, pull people away from Elohim and bring them into Shaitan's camp where they become his offspring and his heirs. And there are many of those. So when Yeshua says here in Luke 10:19, I give you authority to trample on Nachash, he's talking about Shaitan, Satan, who is trying to pull you away from Elohim. Simple as that. He's talking about Shaitan, Satan, and or his minions who are doing his work of dividing and cutting. So he's not talking about giving you power over snakes. He's talking about giving you power over the Nachash, the bad seeds who try to pull you away from Elohim. Now let's take a look at the word interpreted as scorpion in Luke 10:19. This is an Aramaic word, and it is, if I'm pronouncing it properly, Oi Karbeah. Oi Karbeah. It is spelled Wa, Ayin, Kuf, Resh, Beit, Aleph. Wa is pronounced O. Ayin is pronounced E. So you have O-E. Kuf is pronounced K. Resh is the R. O-E, Kar. And then you have Beit, Aleph, Beah. Oi Karbeah. Scorpion. Wa, that's the tent peg. It's used to secure a tent. It's also the number of man, 6. Ayin is a picture of an eye. It has to do with spiritual sight and vision. It means to watch or to know. And in the positive sense, it has to do with the Word and His Ruach converging in your soul or in your living experience. Not in this case. Kuf. It's a picture of the sun at the horizon. In this case, it's a picture of the sun going down, light diminishing into darkness. Resh is a picture of a man's head. It has to do with who your headship is and therefore what your thoughts are about. Beit, it's a picture of a house, actually the floor plan of a tent, and whose house you're in, whose family you're in. And finally, Aleph, a picture of the ox head, pointing at the Father and specifically being yoked to Yahweh. Again, talking about your headship and who you're yoked to. In this sense, we're talking about this word, Oi Karbeah, always interpreted as scorpion. It's not talking about an insect in the desert. It's talking about a demonic being, and therefore all these things about each oat that we talk about are in the negative and in the dark side. So we go with Wa, the tent peg. This is a being who wants to pitch a tent with you in darkness and get you away from pitching your tent with Elohim. It's Ayin. Spiritual sight and vision is distorted. It's all a matter of sight and vision of darkness and distorting your vision and keeping His Word and His Ruach from converging in your living experience. Kuf, sun at the horizon. You know, this is light diminishing into darkness, going into the west, away from the east, going away from the beginning and the ways of the Father, going away from the way into your own way of doing things, or so you think, into just darkness. Resh, the headship. Here the headship is Shaitan, Satan, or the things of the world, worshiping the things of the world, money, position, fame, and fortune. And Beit, this is the house of, again, Shaitan. And Aleph, the being yoked to Satan rather than the Father. So this word that we see, a scorpion, oi harba, is very negative. It's talking about demonic forces that want to pitch their tent with you and get you to pitch your tent with the forces of darkness, and to diminish your spiritual sight and vision so that you are blinded, and to pull you into the darkness and make Satan your headship and your family and the ruler of your house. There you have the Otiot for these words. I hope, as always, that this study with the Otiot has been a berekah to you. Shalom, my friends.
There's a river, there's a field, both are givers, both will